So far we've talked about the sun, the moon, the stars, and this wonderful, beautiful planet full of plants given to us by Odin, the sun. Creating the first two human, H, the sound H or ho, H means hell or home. The sound U means Ursprung, origin. And the sound man means man, but man also means woman, mankind, woman, she's part of mankind. The origin of man is hell, H-U-M-A-N. So this story says that the human being, the people, we originated from one ring of land at the top of the planet called Udenmaa. You go to Helsinki, Finland today, if you ask anybody, where are you at, they will all say, you're standing in the middle of Udenmaa. So still today, they call it Uusimaa also, and Uusi means new, the new land, because it was always new. The sun was always going around and around. This Bock family that this story comes from, this last member of this Bock family, Eeyore Bock, who I learned the story from, their family started to create the human race of people. This first father on the planet, we call him Pear in English. We call the highest woman, the All-Mother, we call her Ella. In root language, he is called Gube, and she is called Guma. In the Van language, the Finnish language, he's called Ukko, and she's called Akka. Per Ella, Gube, Guma, Ukko, and Akka. In the three different languages. And this first father, this first pair, he is going to be what we call the first good. The sound gay, day, good. And in English, the word good comes to the word God. In the Van language, he is called Jumala. Jumala, Allah, Jumala. And she's called Jumala Atar. God and Goddess. In three languages. God, Goddess, Good, Gudina, Yumala and Yumala Atar. So in our story, there is Goddess. In the mythology, there is Goddess, there is the female. And the religious, they took the goddess away. There is no goddess in the religion. So this story is made for the women also. So this first man on the planet, he is the first god. He's called Frey. He's called Godfrey. The Good Frey. The Good Friday. And this first woman, this first Freya, she's the first goddess on the planet. So the word God and Goddess is the first two people on the planet. It's not made by God, this planet, but the sun made the God and the Goddess. And the first God is called Good, because good is good. So this Bock family, they are from the family of good, or God. And in Russian, Bog means God. In Hindu, Bhagwan, Bhagwan, Bhagwan. So this story comes from the family of God, the Pirouette family, the first man and first woman on this planet. The people, we made children, because now children is very important. Before I tell you about how we made children before, I have to give you one thing, and I have friends say, oh, you can't put that in there, but I have to, because this is very, very important, what I'm about to tell you. In the paradise time, we had no hospitals, we had no sickness. And all people on this planet, we were all brown. We all had brown eyes. And we were all vegetarian, the whole planet. If you lived in hell, you spoke the Os language, the root language. If you lived outside from hell, you spoke the Von language, or the Vonner language, which is the Finnish language today. These people, they understood that in this seed, in this sperm, was the culture, the kultura, the culture, the kultura. And they understood that if all humans are going to come from this culture, that we had to respect the culture, because in the culture is our brains, our knowledge, because the knowledge came through the seed. Frey and Freya did not have the knowledge until they got the seed. It's how I would explain it was the divine intervention. If we came from the monkey and the nanny goat, then where in the evolution, did we come with this incredible brain that we can make these Nokia telephones and spaceships to go to Mars and Coca-Cola? The sun gave to Per and Ma, the sperma. And in this seed was this alphabet, which they created a language. And from this language, we created one logic about how we should live according to one plan on this planet. And in these days, the women respected something called Sav. In root language, they call it Mahala. In Von language, and in English, we call it sap. And this Sav, or this sap, is what's in the woman's climax. It's her essence. It's her brain power. It's her energy. It's her energy. And the man in his seed, each of these little fish, each of these spermas, is one soul. The night my mother and my father made me, my father put his pole into my mother's pee, and out came that little blast in one orgasm. And in that seed, there was the biggest race of my life. There were 1 million of these little eels, these little fish with a head and a body and a tail, swimming out from my father's balls up into my mother, into her G. And in her G was the energy, the energy for me to start to live. And it was a big race that night. They were everywhere. There were 1 million of them all coming out. But I won the race. If you don't win that race, you're not in the human race. I was number 1. I was the winner. If you don't win that race, you're not sitting here, because everybody's sitting here. You all won the race that night. Each of those little fish is one soul. If you took one orgasm, you could take each of those little sperma, each of those little fish, and put them into 1 million different women and make 1 million children with one shot. So the soul is in the sperm. That's why we take our father's name. The woman, she has something called energy. She's the real magic in this story. But without that little fish, there's nobody. And if 2 of those little fish go into my mother, there's 2 people with 2 faces, with 2 names, with 2 souls. If 3 fish go into my mother, they call them triplets. There's 3 people with 3 faces, with 3 names, with 3 souls. So each little fish in every shot is one soul or one Ra. So our soul comes from our father's balls. If you can understand such a story. So this story is about our soul and our spirit. Today they can't explain the soul, but Mr. Bock gave me that knowledge, and I explained tonight. These people in the beginning, they respected the seed. They knew that if they threw the seed away, they threw the seed away, they threw the seed away. They understood that they're throwing their soul away. They're throwing the light that's inside of them. The inner light, the enlightenment. And each of these little souls represents one light, one life, one cell, one soul. So each boy at the age of 7, he was taught one yoga position. This is your as. This is not your as. This is the as. Sa means to take. You saw. And na means knowledge. So each boy was taught one asana. You could saw the na of your as in one yoga position. And every boy was taught something called immune system. In the root language, E is a pole with a dot. This is one E. And every man has one E. And this little dot above is the sperm that comes out. This is the North Star, the knowledge. In the root language, this we call mouth. They call moon. In German, they call Mund. But this is your moon, and this is the man's E. And every boy at the age of 7 is taught one yoga position. Where he put his E in his own moon. And he drank his own seed every day of his life. It was called his immune system. And the immune system was the Moon-E system. It was our money system before. If your health is no good, you're not a very wealthy man. If you have really good immune system, you have an inner wealth inside of you. So, in the Van language, we call it Raha. Ha means to have. Ra is what's in the sperm. Ra is in the Ra, the king, the race. So before, the money system was the good inside of us, not the goods we have on the outside today. In English, we call it succeed. Every boy was taught to succeed. So yeah, it was like that. We respected the seed. We didn't throw it away. We didn't throw our soul away. Today, we just don't have the knowledge anymore. It was taken away from us, and I'll explain maybe later how it was taken away. Every little girl, she was taught something called more root. And more root is one care root. And every girl, the letter Y or Yi is the girl, she could go like this, and now she could go with one carrot. She could masturbate with this carrot, and when she came with her climax, woman has the klima. Man, we don't have the klima. We have orgasm. So when she had the climax, as this is coming out, this silver, it would absorb into this carrot that had been peeled, and she could eat this, and she kept her essence also. Her S is the sun, and sense is your senses. So in her climax, it was her brain, and in the man's seed was our brain. And this is how they taught these pagan people before, like this. They respected their their mahala, their sav, their sap, and their seed. But we had no sickness because we had our immune systems. Before baptism was not when they took some water from the river or the lake or the tap over there and pour it on the baby or pour in the water was the water baptism. And the water of life is the man's sperm. Because in this river of water are all these little fish swimming like eels up the river. So each father, when his children were born on their name days, each papa would wank into one spoon and he would baptize his little girl or his little boy. And in this seed was his immune system, the knowledge of his family who had been given from his father, because every boy, every girl were baptized with the father's seed. This was the baptism, the water baptism. In the pagan time, it was a water baptism, but the different kind of water. It was called the water of life. When we made the children, we had one word called hun, moon. In the root language, hun means female, han means masculine. So before the woman, before she was going to make a child with somebody, which I'll explain in the next ring, she would take the man that she was going to make the child with. He would put his E in his honey's moon, the girl's moon. So she would drink the seed for 30 days before this seed came into her to impregnate her. So I wanted to just say something about the immune system, the baptism, and the honeymoon system from the paradise time. How we lived according to one nature system. We made children a little different before. These holidays in the year, we started with one day called Lucia Day. And Lucia Day is the 13th of the 12th month. And on this Lucia Day, the girls on the planet who had the dream, on this one night of the year, the night of the 13th of 12, the 13th of December, the girls who had the feeling to make a child, who wanted to be the mother, she had to have one dream of one woman coming down from the top of the hill with 7 candles in her hair. And this girl, she's called the Lucia. And these girls who had this dream of this Lucia, she could now the next morning go to the 2 elder women of the village, of her family, and she could tell these 2 women that now, last night, I had the dream of the Lucia. And these 2 old women could ask her some questions, and soon they knew if she really had the dream or not. And if she had the dream, she was eligible to make a child. But she had to have this dream. She could also have the dream and tell the 2 elder women, I didn't have the dream, if she really didn't want to. There's white lies and there's black lies. Black lies are very bad. But sometimes we have to tell some white lies. White lies don't hurt people. Black lies hurt people. So they could tell these 2 old women a white lie, I didn't have the dream. So these girls who had had the dream had gone through the 2 women, the elder women, the ones that were eligible. Now the next holiday is called Festival Day. Fest is a party, a feast. E is just masculine again, and vol means to choose. So the women, they would vol the E at one fest, and festival was the Christmas day. It had nothing to do with the birth of Jesus. It's the winter solstice. The days are getting longer now because they were shorter. And on this day, these men who were the bigger, stronger anatomy, they were standing in these coliseums on one pedestal. And they were standing up there completely bare, completely with no clothes like this. And these girls would come in who had had the dream, and now they could look to these guys and see, is this what I want to make a child? Do I want this? And they'd look into the eyes of this guy and see if there was some kind of a feeling of love, of good feeling. She wasn't going to marry this guy. She was just going to make a child with him. And in these days, the women, they made many children. A mother didn't make one or two children. They made many children. They were highly respected, the mothers. And these women always chose a different man every time they made a child. They didn't use the same man. So every 2 years they can make another child. But they would choose another man. And these women, they would go into these guys standing on these pedestals, and they would vol the E. They would choose the E at this party, at one festival of this father. 2 days later, they call it Boxing Day. Boxing Day is the day we sing for the Bocks, for the Bock family, the Boxing Day. And on this day, these guys who were going to be the fathers, they all had to go in one tournament. They had to go in one games, one like Olympics. And they had many, many games. They had a sawbuck where these guys would have a bag of seed on each ground. They had to knock his friend off on the ground, and they had poles. So they were always, and these robbies are all looking at these guys to see who's the best to be the father, because we only used the best before, the most beautiful and healthy and the most. And half of these guys lost. And they had to wait till next year and try again. And the girls who chose those guys who lost, they didn't have the right intuition. They had to wait till the next year to have the dream again and choose again. So it got down to half of the girls and half of the guys as we were making children. Not anybody could make child with anybody in these days. We live different today. We go now from the 26th, the Boxing Day, the festive, the Lucia Day, the 13 of 12, the 24, the festival day, Christmas, the 26th, the Boxing Day, the day that these guys, they go boxing each other, and now we go to the 24th of May. And this is the mating day, the mating, the Maya, she's queen, she's figuring out one part of the system too. And on this mating day, these girls who had chosen the right guys, this was the month of love. And for the next month, this girl, she would do something called Hoon E Moon. She was the Hoon. E was the man's E, and Moon was her mouth, so she would put the E from her father to be, her children maker to be, in her moon, and she would drink the seed from this father for 30 days, every day one shot. And all this soul power from his would go down into her G. So when this one little fish came swimming in the next month, it not only had her inner G or her inner Gi, it also had soul power from the father also. Because when this little fish comes in, the mother closes the door on the tail, and now this little fish head starts to eat, and now it becomes her DNA and his DNA. It's a living little animal, this little sperma. It's alive. Today they can't explain what the soul is in the universities. They don't know anything about the soul, where it comes from. They don't know that it comes from the sun through the sperm. The religious people, they don't know it either. These were questions I had to be answered that they couldn't answer. They could not answer my questions. And Mr. Bock, he answered those questions for me. And one logic. I don't believe this story. It's unbelievable, this story. It's beyond belief. It's unbelievable. But if you put a little time and effort into it, you can understand it. I understand this story to be true. I don't believe it to be true. A belief you can change from day to day to day. Today I can believe in Jesus. Tomorrow day I can believe in Buddha. The next day I can believe in Krishna. But an understanding you can't change. I understand that my soul and all this life and all this movie I see, I understand that it comes from the light of the sun. I cannot change that understanding. Now you can believe there's somebody out there in space who made the sun. That's called the belief in God out there. He's everywhere up there. But I don't believe that anybody made the sun. I understand that the sun is what's creating everything that I see. On the 24th of 6 is the sex day. And on this day, these girls, after making this honeymoon, on this one night of the year, these girls would go into one meadow. And this meadow in root language is called Ang. One Ang is one meadow, like England, the meadowland, the land of meadows. And in this Ang, in this meadow, these girls would make one bed of flowers, a bed of flowers. And in the middle of this bed at 12 o'clock, this girl would lay on her back at 12 o'clock at night. It's called Johannes Day in the almanac. And on this one night, the girls would now open the angel's wings. The angel is the woman when she opens her legs. This is the angel's wings. There's no angels flying around up there in the vacuum. It's one angle. She opens the angle, the angel. And when she opens these angel wings, this man who she had been making this honeymoon, he comes now at 12 o'clock and he puts his E into her ooh. Ooh-ee, ooh-ee. And when she does, he puts the seed into this girl, into this woman. And now the race begins on this 24th of 7. Johannes Day. And this was the children making day. From the 13th of 12, the Christmas, the 24th, the festival day. The 26th, the Boxing Day, the tournament day. The 24th of May, the honeymoon begins, and for this next month. And then the 24th of 6, June the 24th, is this Johannes Day. I think I just had to correct that. The seed went into the mother to be. And 9 months later, in the spring, in the March, all children came out. And this is how we made children before. It's a much bigger story than that. I just tell it as small as I can. The people we died much different before also. We didn't die like we die today. Today people are dying. Before we weren't really dying. One of these 4 gifts that the sun gave to the people, the linguistic, the fire, the mathematics, but the 4th was this walking stick. Because when the bird cannot fly, the fish cannot swim, and the animal cannot walk, they fall down and their soul goes back into the earth. But the human being, one day, he or she stands up to go out the door, and he can't walk and she can't walk. The legs aren't really working so well. And on this day, we use this highest woman. I'll use the Akka, the highest woman on the planet. And this Akka, she could wake up one morning and she couldn't walk anymore. So now the Akka, she get one stick, and now she can still walk. But everybody in the village, they see that now our high mama, she's on the stick. She don't have much longer. Because in these days, the day that you couldn't walk with your stick anymore was the day to go away. As long as you could walk with your stick, you had the life. But one day, the Akka, the highest woman on the planet, the Akademi, the academic, the Akka, the all men Akka, the almanac, the all men come from Akka. And on this highest day, this Akka, now she gets up one day and now she cannot walk with her stick anymore. And she sits down. And the word goes out to all the people in her family, which was everybody around. And everybody wanted to see the Akka before she went away. So one by one person could come see the Akka. And she could talk to them, they talked to her, and when there was nothing else to say, the Akka, she'd look you in the eye. You look her in the eye, there was nothing else to say, and it was just a smile. And that person go away, and the next person, the next person. So Akka, she got to say what she needed to say to everybody who had love, who had feeling for her. And everybody loved the Akka. She was the grandmother. She was the old woman. And then come the day when she had said everything and everybody had said what to her. And now the two strongest Wallace, the two strongest men of the whole village, they come and everybody was bar. Everybody wore no clothes in the paradise. We were bar. Our bars were bar. We wore no clothes. Barbarian has nothing to do with savage. Barbarian just means our bars are bare. There's no clothes on our bars. Bar bare. I love to go bar bare. Not too many places you can do it anymore because the normals all freak out with it. And these two biggest, strongest guys of the village, they come and they make something called the golden throne. They hold their hands like this, these two guys, and they put the Akka right here, and she got her stick. And these two biggest, strongest guys carry the grandmother out from her and up to one place they call one Etta Stupa. Etta Stupa. Et is the family, Ta means take, and Stupa means to fall away, to stoop down, you stupa. And all the people who loved the Akka, all the people who had feeling for the Akka, they all made one queue, one line behind this Akka as these two men are carrying this Akka up to the top of one Etta Stupa is one place that goes up, it's flat on the top and it falls straight down like one cliff behind. And these two guys, they carry this woman, this Akka up, and now she's standing. You always wanted to be able to stand. If you couldn't stand, you went too far. You couldn't walk with your stick, but you could still stand. And now they put this Akka, and now she's standing at the top of this cliff, and all these people on the ground are standing down there. They come in one procession, and now they make one semicircle, and they're all looking up into the eyes of their mother, their grandmother, and she's looking down into the eyes of all her children. There's nothing to say to any of them. It's all been said one by one. The reflections of the soul is the eyes. So she was looking into the reflection of all who she made, because she was the All-Mother. All these children came from her in one system of pirouette, rousette, yarlet, carlet, trailet. And off to the right they had one ring, one P. And in the middle of the P was one pole. And when the sun Udin shined down on this stick coming up from this ring in the middle of the pole, it cast the shadow Q or Ku. And Ku is quadrat. All mathematics comes from a pole in the middle of a ring. And she could look down and she could see when Udin was at 12 o'clock noon. And when she looked to see that the shadow was on 12 o'clock, she took her stick and she lifted it straight up to Udin and looked straight into the sun, to the light that created her life. And these people on the ground in this time, they didn't look into the eyes of the Aka. This is the most private second of the life, this very last second. They also looked into the sun. So Aka is looking into the sun. All her family is looking. It's like one reflection from the soul, through the soul, to her soul. And as she lifted the stick up, she couldn't stand anymore. And she fell straight off the back. And the last thing she saw was the sun that had created her life. She died looking into the light. And the last thing. And that's how we all died before. We went at the stupa. When we can't walk with our stick anymore, it was time to go away. It was the nature who told us that day, not a doctor or an insurance company. And these pagan people, they had one understanding about soul and spirit that we don't have today. We've lost this. I've explained where this soul comes from. It comes from the solar. And the solar the sun gave to the pair on the ma, the sperma, so we were given this special soul to this first pair and this first ma on this. And in these pagan times, in these heathen times, all the bodies were burned. They put them on one fire and they burned. Everybody was burned. We had no graveyards. We had no cemeteries full of places where nobody can walk because it's somebody's there and somebody's there. We had no places where we find their bones. Everybody was burned, and the pagan people, they had one understanding or one belief maybe that the soul was in the ash of the fire. The ash is the driest thing on the planet. And in the fire, after everything went away, was the soul of that person. And they gathered this ash up and they put it in one sack of one animal's balls and they sewed it up. And all ash, no matter where you lived on this planet, all ash was sent via these Ravis back up to hell. And there we had these family trees because we all belong to family trees. In the paradise we had the palm tree. After paradise we got the oak trees. And this highest family, the Pirouette, they had one tree called the Yggdrasil. It was one ash tree that was still in existence until just a few years ago. I stood and watched, I looked at this ash tree. I've touched it. One tree from the beginning of the human being. And these trees were called family trees. And these people, they took the ash of the tree, the ash, and they put it into the roots of the tree. And through the damp system, through the moisture, through this Mother Earth, the soul now becomes female. And the soul is sucked from the ash into the root of the tree. And from there it goes up the roots to the trunk or to the stem of the tree in the form of something called sav, sap. or Mahala. It's the same stuff that comes out when the woman has the climax. It's the soul power in that sense, the energy. And now the sun is sucking this fluid in this tree, this sap, it's sucking through the leaves, it's sucking this sap up to the branch, to the leaf. So our life, our soul, our life is now gone to the leaf of the tree. And the word life comes from the word leaf. And in the green of the leaf, our soul. And now the sun who made our soul sucks the soul, the life, out of the leaf. But for a while, you are in the leaf. You be the leaf. And that's the belief system. Our life can be the leaf. And from the leaf, the sun sucks the soul out of the leaf into the air of the planet. And in this centrifugal, this centrifugal force of this planet spinning around and around, this soul is now spinning around through the air, and it all goes back into the hole in the top of the E, into the holy. All the soul goes into the hole in the top of the pole to a place called Valhalla, or to the holy. In root language, holy is called Helig, Helig, Hel-i-grund. So this hole that's on this island still today, 3 kilometers in front of Helsinki, is a museum built on top of it today. There's a very big story about this hole on the top of the E, but it's still there today. It's in the granite in the top of one hill. And this was the heaven. So the soul is a special thing that we had knowledge of before. The spirit, in the root language, they call the spirit Ande. In the Von language, they call it Henki. In the root language, Ande means the spirit, and Andas means to breathe. So the spirit is different than the soul. The spirit is in the breath, the prana. So every time you breathe out, you breathe the spirit out. And every time you breathe in, you're taking the spirit in. Today it's kind of polluted a little bit, but anyway. And on your last breath, your spirit goes out. And there it also goes into the air and also goes in this centrifugal back to this center point on the top of the planet. In the paradise time, when we were like this, today it's not going there anymore because we're tilted over, which I'll explain in a few minutes. And these trees, when they became old, we could take the father at that time, he would cut some branches from these trees and he would plant them. And when this first branch came with roots, he could cut the old tree down and dig out the stump. And now he could put some mud and water and sticks, and he could take the branch from the mother tree and now plant the new tree where you could keep your family tree going for millions of years, as long as you, what they call puri. Pu in the Von language means the tree or the wood is pu, and re means again. You could re your family tree. So as long as your sperm line was alive, before we understood sperm lines, not bloodlines. You don't make children with blood. You make children with sperma. So in this story we live according to sperm lines. This bloodline comes much later. So you could keep your family tree going again and again and again. Every 1,000 years you replant it, or however, when the old tree gets old, you start a new one. And in this one family, they kept one ash tree for millions of years. This king and this queen of the planet, Ra and Maya, the people in one information system, they much appreciated these two people. All the people on the planet appreciated this Ra and Maya, these As king and As queen. And there was one system called Yehovah. The sound Yeh, which would be J-A or J-E, but Yeh, Yeh means to give. Yea, yea, yes, yea, yea, yo, yea. The sound hove, hove comes from the word in English, hoof. So the goat has one hoof. And the sound ah meant the aser. So the sound Yehovah was one giving system where the people of the planet were giving to the hove or the court of the aser. The hove is the court of the castle. Yehovah, which they call Jehovah today. And the people of this planet, they were making beautiful, beautiful handicraft in the paradise time. Made from gold. All was made from gold, because gold is part of the sun. This fire belongs to the sun and gold belongs to the sun. And they created this handicraft, all these ringlands all over the planet. From each ringland, every 50 years, every heir of Ra, every era, the most beautiful one piece of handicraft was sent to hell, to one castle called Rasepuri. And this Rasepuri is still one castle. It's in one ruin. It's about 80 kilometers to the west of Helsinki. And in this Rasepuri is where the race of human beings is coming out, because Ra, he had the say. It's still called Rasepuri, Raseburg. You can go. I have some pictures of it here. It was the castle of the Os people. And every 50 years, these Rabbis would now, had brought the sperm out via one dragon system, which I won't go into tonight. But when they all come back to hell, they're all bringing this one most beautiful piece of handicraft. And it's made from gold, and they call this stuff esthétique. In English, we call it aesthetics. Es is the sun, ta means to take, and teak is like time, tick-tock, antique. So esthétique is something that will, gold is forever. So these handicrafts made from gold, they should never, ever, ever, they should be forever, because unless you destroy it, the gold is forever. You never have to polish gold. It's always gold. All these other metals you have to polish. And these thousands of these golden handicrafts are all brought back up to this castle. And the castle's still there today, or what's left of it. The Catholics knocked it down in 1050, but we'll come to that later. And this place isn't today. You would go to a place from Finland, you would call it's called Snappertuna, or it's called Tuna. And Tu is two, and Na is knowledge, the knowledge of two, the king and the queen, because they had the knowledge. So people could give it fortuna, fortune. And this castle become full of these beautiful handicrafts that the people had given, because in the paradise gold was everywhere on the planet. It was all over. But it had no value to it. Really, the only thing you can make gold is you can make beautiful jewelry. You can make beautiful handicrafts. I mean, you can't really use it much for anything else. Today it has such a value. I guess they use a little bit in electronics, but you can't use gold for anything except to make beautiful things with. Handicrafts. And every 50 years, this Ra, he become the king at 27. His sister, she became the queen at 27. About 50 years was one era. And now this Maya, this queen, she's become 77, and Ra, this king, he's become 77. They're the old king and the old queen. And now it's time for the new Ra and Maya. In Bond language, they call her Kuning Atar, and he's called Kuning As. They represent the moon, and they're the As, Kuning As. So Ra, he represents the moon. And every 50 years, this castle becomes full of this beautiful handicraft, but now this old king and queen, they're going to retire. And the new Maya and the new Ra, they're going to become the new king and queen, because every 50 years was a new generation of this Bock family. And they had to put all this beautiful handicraft, they had to store it somewhere, because now this next king and queen, they're going to be getting all this new beautiful handicraft from all the people on the planet, the Bond people, who are going to send up beautiful gifts for the king and queen. So 30 kilometers to the east of Helsinki today, there is one storehouse built in the ground with one little small temple. And this temple is called the Lemminkainen Temple. We worked 4 years to try to get into this thing. It's a very, very big story. I don't know if I can get to it tonight. But when this planet first formed, when this explosion happened, boom, as this rock is still soft, as these continents are blowing out here and there, at the very top of the North Pole, there come one air bubble, one gas bubble that rose to the very top of the planet. And this gas bubble formed one cavern, one huge hole. And as this air bubble came to a stop, part of it went up into one passage, went up and ended up as a little ball, a little small room, big enough for 2 people. It was little small. It was shaped like a Santa Claus hat. The hat, the part that goes up from the hat, and the little ball on top. And in the very last minute, the very last few seconds of this planet, as it exploded, it formed one opening, one hole in the top of the planet. And 30 kilometers to the east of Helsinki, there was one entrance that went down into this, where this Etistupa stone is. There's a huge Etistupa stone. I have some pictures with me where this highest woman, Akka, where she fell off her Etistupa. It's Akka's Etistupa. Still today, the stone's still there, and still today is the sundial clock rock that she would look over to. And on top of this hill is a burning place where you can see where they burned many, many people, many Akkas before, because they burned her right there. Still on this hill. The hill is called Pelivori. And down in this cave, as it went down, and these people started to go into this cavern, this cave, this cavern. And we've been working on one excavation. So there's a cave. And they started to dig out along the walls. They built one pathway. They cut the wall back and they left a path. And this path goes around and around this big cavern, going down and down in one spiral, getting bigger and bigger and bigger. And the diameter of this storeroom is 250 kilometers, 180 miles. It's still there today. And along this pathway, they gold-plated this path. And the walls, they gold-plated. And it started to create one golden dome inside the top of the Mother's Earth. It's still there today. And when you go into this temple, which we haven't been in yet, we started to dig it in 1987. We worked 4 years, we stopped, but I was there from the beginning of the digging. I saw everything who came out of that. I made another tape to talk about this temple. I won't go into it so much tonight. But every period, every pair, ri, ud, was one pair, one father. And when we do go into this storehouse, there would be, the first we see is one golden statue of the All-Father, of Frey, the first All-Father on the planet. There will be one golden statue there. And behind this golden statue, life-size golden statue of what the first man on this planet looked like. Behind him are 3 chambers, 2 storerooms and 1 showroom. And all this beautiful Jehovah system, this aesthetique that came from all the people via this Rasapuri, this castle, which is over in West Udenma. The temple opening is in East Udenma. Inside these 2 rooms are the thousands of pieces of beautiful art. And outside is another small chamber called the showroom. So the father could take one piece of this art, bring it into one room, and now put the candles in there, because all the walls are covered with gold. Only 1 candle is all you need. The whole place comes Saturday night in New York, because the gold reflects the candle. And now he could look and appreciate this one piece of art, because in one piece of art in the middle of thousands you can't appreciate. So now he could look and he could put it back and bring another. It was one showroom with 2 chambers to store this Jehovah system. And the next door we should come to will be 3 more chambers for the 12th son, because the 12th son is the new Bock, the 12th son is the new Bock, the 12th son. So this Lemminkainen, this temple is called the Lemminkainen temple. And in this next 3 rooms will be the Jehovah from the second Ra and Maya, the second Jehovah system, with the golden statue of the All-Father from the 12th son to the 12th son. More than 1 million generations of this Bock family, thousands, millions of chambers full of golden, beautiful things created by people in a time we have no idea about today. It's a storehouse for the story, for his story. It's the history of the human race inside this temple. The temple itself is a small little room. It's just got 1 piece of furniture called divan. And there was another story I won't go into tonight. But down from this little room, this temple is one storehouse, one golden spiral street called the underworld, the Underwereld. And one day the people of the planet, Eeyore gave it to the people of the planet. It belongs to all of you. And none of this stuff should ever come out when we open this temple. But it's one thing that these people from a long time ago left for us to see, what people were doing millions of years ago on this planet. How we were born, how we died. Our ash going up, our soul going out, our spirit. How we were giving in one system before. I'm thinking about any more stories. I could give one little money story. This is from pagan time, a little bit later, but while it's in my brain, I want to give a nice money story. Because today money it's nice if you have it, but if you don't, if you have too much of it, you only want more and more. In the pagan times, I'm jumping ahead a little bit, but it's still the pagan times. There was a castle on top of the hill. And the king and the queen, they lived in the castle. And the king, he had these people who lived down in the village. The middle class people called car people. And car people are the middle class. Here in India you have all these car people. You have Gokarna, Pushkar, Karnataka, Karavan. So car, they were the middle class people. And these people in the middle class, they had handicrafts. They had things that they did. The lowest people, they just took care of the trails. They kept everything clean. They had a nice life. They were the freest, the lowest class. But this middle class, they were making candles. They were making different things. So they had some kind of commerce. And every year this king, he would send one guy down to these people in the village with one bag of coins. And all the coins all had the picture of the king because they belonged to him. And this year was the year one. It'd have a picture of Papa, the king. It'd have the year one. And now this guy, he gave to these people in the village, and the candlestick maker gave it to the baker, and the baker gave it to the shoemaker, and the shoemaker gave it to the blacksmith. And so these coins would circulate inside this little commerce system during the year. But next year, Papa, the king, he sent one of the same guy down there with a new sack of coins, year two, with the Papa's picture on the front of the coin. And he gave all these people year two coins. But he'd take all year one coins back because they belonged to Papa. In year three, he'd bring year three down. He'd take all year two back and take it back up to Papa because they really belonged to him up there on the hill. And in this way, we couldn't collect extra. I couldn't keep 6 coins this year, and next year I kept 9 extra coins, and by the time I was 75, I had 78 extra coins that I could give to my son, and he could start the whole thing over again. There were no banks. You couldn't have extra. Nobody had extra. Everybody got what they needed. It's like the nature. The nature takes what it needs, but it doesn't take extra. It was an honest money system. Everybody got what they needed, but nobody had any extra. That's a pagan money system before the church came along. They had a coin system before, but there was no collecting. You couldn't collect it and save it. We're going to move on in this story. This paradise story has many, many stories, and I'm sure I've left some out. Maybe on the other video I made in Thailand, maybe there's some in there that I forgot this time, but there was some in this that I had to tell that I left out the other one. So maybe one day people can watch both of them. We had one military system before. But in the military before, we weren't killing our children. The military system before was called the dragoon system, the dragon system. And in this military system, there was one All-Father who stood on top of the planet, and from his balls came billions of human beings. He was putting out the seed in one system to make billions of people. And this Papa, he couldn't just give out and give out. He needed something back. You can't just give and give and give. You have to get something back, or he'd go dry. And this All-Mother, she's sitting up there too, and via, all these people on the planet originated from her. So she's giving out her salve, her sap, and she couldn't just give and give and give either. She had to get something back. We lived in a much different kind of thinking system. Today we're completely conditioned, very, very heterosexual. Me, all my friends, even Eeyore, we're all heterosexual. We've been trained. But before, the men and the women, the women were offering their climax in one system up to this All-Mother. And the men were offering their seed in one system via, up to the All-Father. So there was one offering, the off-air ring. We were ring the air. Air is in the sperma, the spare. And so the men were offering the seed up to the Father in one system, which I won't go into, and the women were all offering their climax up to this All-Mother. And this is the pair ring in the Father. The pair is the Father, ring is the ring. So maybe if we can repair the Father's ring, it's the repairing of the planet.